and dear attendees. Thank you so much. Very good morning to all of you. I would like to welcome you to the Merck Foundation Health Media Training in partnership with Her Excellency Mrs. Mutinta Hichilema, the First Lady of the Republic of Zambia, and Her Excellency Amai Dr. Auxilia Mangwagwe, the First Lady of the Republic of Zimbabwe. Thank you so much for the partnership. I also would like to thank you for our collaboration with the media associations in Zambia and Zimbabwe. I would like to thank you, Zambia Union of Journalists. Thank you very much. And Zimbabwe National Editors Forum. Thank you very much. I also would like to thank you, Senator Dr. Rasha Kellett, CEO of Merck Foundation, for taking an initiative to organize the community awareness programs that includes Merck Foundation Health Media Training. Thank you, everyone, for being there with us. And now we'll start the Merck Foundation Health Media Training. We are thrilled to have you all here today. Let's begin with a powerful video that highlights the story of Jacqueline Munde, a woman who courageously faced infertility stigma. Can we have the video, please, Bhavesh?
Jacqueline Wende, a 27-year-old young woman from a rural place called Masii in Machakos County, Kenya, tells us her sad story of having both hands chopped off, not by thieves, but by her own husband, for failing to conceive, even though he was the one with a fertility problem.
Mandi ndio nilisikia akigonga mlango akiniambia Jackie nifungulie. Niliachana na chakula nilikuwa nakula, nikaamka nikaenda nikamfungulia. Kitambo nimfungulie ndio alikata hii mkono. Nikaanguka hapo chini na akanifuruta nikaenda nikaanguka huko chini. Kitambo nianguka huko chini alikuwa ananikata kichwa na mikono na uso na akanidunga hapa na kisu na hiyo panga alikuwa nayo. Aliponichapa nilimuuliza, kwa nini Ngila unanichapa? Utaniua peke yako. Akanyamaza akaniambia, leo ndio siku yako ya kuongea, hautaongea tena maishani.
Merck Foundation came to the aid of Jacqueline through the Merck More Than a Mother campaign. She was provided with a new home and a supermarket to enable her to earn a steady income and become independent. Like Jacqueline, there are many other women that suffer from infertility stigma. Merck Foundation works closely with partners to empower them to be heroines of More Than a Mother movement.
Infertility is not just a woman's thing. It takes the two of them to have a child. So many treatments could make it right. So join her.
Thank you, Bhavesh. Our attendees wanted to see the video in the full screen next time. Thank you so much for playing the video, and I hope that story resonated with all of you, and this is really heart-touching story. And also I would like to tell you this is very special health media training, because this is the first time that we'll talk about a session of mpox during the health media training, presented by a very prominent expert from Africa. So this is very special. this health media training. And also, I would like to tell you that this health media training is live streaming on our social media platform, so you can follow our social media there and this health media training. Thank you so much. Now, I would like to introduce the Merck Foundation programs that are making a difference in the lives of women and families in the world. In particular, we'll hear about two significant awards for 2024, the Merck Foundation More Than a Mother Awards and the Merck Foundation Diabetes and Hypertension Awards. And in two categories, we have subcategories. We have Merck Foundation Song Award, Film Award, Media Award, and Fashion Award. Bhavesh, can you present each award one by one? I would request all the attendees to please go through it and apply for the maximum awards from your country for each category. Thank you, Bhavesh. I request all the attendees, media representatives there, please share your entries with us in all the awards. We would like to see you win from your country. Thank you so much, Bhavesh. Now we'll watch a short promo of the Merck Foundation TV program, Our Africa by Merck Foundation, which raises awareness of various health and social issues. Can we have the promo, please?
Senator Dr. Rasha Kelej and creator of Our Africa TV show.
All Africa will be part of our show.
The CEO of Merck Foundation.
We want to support girls' education. No to infertility stigma, yes to girls' education. We want to stop gender-based violence, full stop. Number of child marriage will double by 2050.
Thank you very much. Let's begin our today's health media training to invite our first speaker of the day. We are honored to have Dr. Mungove G. Macharie, a consultant obstetrician and a gynecologist from the University of Zimbabwe. Dr. Macharie will be discussing the link between infertility and infectious disease with a special focus on male infertility. Please welcome Dr. Mungave.
Thank you very much, Shama, for introducing me. Your Excellency, Mrs. Ichelema, First Lady of Zambia, and Your Excellency, my Dr. Auxilia Mnangagwa, First Lady of Zimbabwe, Senator Rasha Kelej, CEO of Merck Foundation, More Than a Mother, and all present. It's my pleasure to go over this talk on infertility prevention and the link between infertility and infectious disease, and also male infertility. Just as a broad outline, I'm going to cover infertility prevention and then also highlight here the link between infertility and infectious diseases, and also finally cover male infertility. So what's important to emphasize is that infertility is not a stigma. it should be accepted like another illness or condition which people suffer from. We know that in Africa, we do have some cultural religious practices which result in high levels of infertility, preventable infertility. This is linked to poor nutrition with many poor people and the low resources, poor health-seeking behavior. We also have many people with untreated sexually transmitted diseases who will also have unsafe sex, and also have unsafe abortions, backstreet abortions, which result in pelvic infections, which then damage the reproductive organs, both in men and women. Then we also have sections in Africa which practice female genital mutilation. This damages genital tract, result in failed or poor fertility. And then some sections, there's exposure to smoking, either the individual smoking or industrial smoke. Then other toxins like the leaded petrol and the environmental pollutants. This damage the gametes or the seeds, both in men and women, resulting in infertility. What's important to highlight, and they've always highlighted through Merck, is that infertility affects men and women equally. And also the contribution of infection to infertility is high. In Africa, that accounts for about 85% in women seeking infertility care, compared to 33% worldwide, meaning that infections are causing the majority of the pelvic organ damages or injuries, which result in fertility in Africa, particularly sub-Saharan Africa. So untreated infections lead to infection, or even delayed treatment leads to infertility. So it is important that both men and women have regular checkups and are quickly treated if there were signs of reproductive organs infections. So people, in particular women, should not shy away from going to the clinics. There's always stigma when people have got reproductive infections, so they might delay, and the longer they delay, the more damage they get from the infection. So always remember that you are more than a mother, but if that's for the woman. So infertility is not a stigma. We always need to always highlight that, and this is a very important line to always emphasize on, because often people with infertility tend to feel like they are outfits in society. So in terms of pelvic inflammatory disease, which is really the infections which affect the reproductive organs, two bugs, namely chlamydia and gonorrhea, are the commonly implicated. These are very prevalent, particularly in sub-Saharan Africa, and they tend to just spread without causing much infections, but they damage the tubes and the uterus and the ovaries, resulting in sometimes permanent damage, which results in infertility. And sometimes also result in chronic pelvic pain, or due to tubal damage, the pregnancy might occur outside the uterus, a condition which we call ectopic pregnancy. Also, on the background is human immunodeficiency virus, HIV. It does facilitate many infections toward, and it results in more damage in the pelvic organs. So it reduces the body's immunity, and we have more chlamydia, more gonorrhea, and other pelvic infections. It also results in systemic illness. When the body is under lots of strain, in particular the female body, it shuts off reproduction. Reproduction becomes really like an unnecessary activity. So all the energy is diverted to crucial systems which maintain survival. So any illness resulting in severe weight loss, stress will shut off reproduction. HIV does increase pelvic inflammatory disease, And the other even diseases, which usually don't affect the reproductive organs, but because of HIV, they end up affecting them, in particular tuberculosis. HIV itself can alter the hormonal function of the body and result in failed ability to conceive. So it's important to always emphasize that infertility affects men and women equally. So hence the need to always practice safe sex, avoid being promiscuous, and always using a barrier protection to avoid infections. So both the men and women infections really damage the reproductive organs. So what are the strategies which can employ to increase the chance of becoming pregnant? People need to remain healthy. And for us in particular, who stay in the towns, our environment won't allow us to have physical activity. So it's important for people to be intentional about their exercise. They really have to set aside time to exercise. So you need moderate exercise. We usually recommend at least 2 hours a week, where they are doing it once or doing it a couple of days a week. But they should be a minimum of 2 hours a week of exercise. And then for those wanting to lose weight, they probably need to do at least 4 hours per week. So regular exercise is very important. Of course, on the extreme, intense exercise will shut off reproduction again. Once the body is under lots of stress, it will, once the body is under lots of stress, it shuts off its reproductive function. So for those who are like the athletes who do intense exercise, they end up not ovulating, and they also not going for their period. So we need to moderate. Then it's important to eat a balanced diet, and the balanced diet must also be healthy, which is really with all components, with all nutritional components. So being underweight will shut off reproduction. Being overweight can also shut off reproduction. So in particular for obesity is associated with inability to ovulate. Eggs won't be released. Likewise in men again, sperm production is impaired when people are overweight. So keeping a healthy weight is very important for both men and women. Smoking is a no-no when it comes to infertility. Smoking affects the eggs, what we call the ovums in the ovaries. They won't be developed adequately, and they don't usually reach good maturity. And the hairs which push them along the tube, which is called cilia, is also affected by smoking. So smoking has got a negative impact in women, and the way so for men is it also affects sperm production and sperm movement. Likewise, alcohol, excessive alcohol intake also damages function of the gametes, which these are the seeds. For women, these are the ovum or eggs, or for men, these are the sperms. They are affected by alcohol consumption. So alcohol is a toxin. If it's in excessive amounts, it affects the production machinery for both gametes. So, and also alcohol increases excess calories, which results in overweight. So alcohol must be taken moderately if it cannot be avoided. And this this also applies to other illicit drugs which are taken in the streets. They are harmful to the reproductive organs. So the best is really to avoid them. So again, we highlight again that infertility affects both men and women equally. We need to limit or advise women to limit the amount of caffeine. Of course, there's still debate of how much is safe caffeine and how much is not safe caffeine. And this refers particularly to the strong coffees, the ones which are 100% caffeine. So we should advise women to limit probably in the most 3 cups of coffee a day, not more than that. But if the people can avoid against 2, better. Again, industrial toxins affect both ovaries, which produce the eggs, and also the testicles, which produce the sperm. So people must avoid industrial toxins. Unfortunately, some people encounter this in their daily activities. Some are into gold production. They use lots of mercury. Some are in the paint industry, and they're exposed to this. But it really becomes the duty of the industry themselves to have some occupational safety checks to make sure their workers are not overexposed. And then overall, it's important to avoid or reduce stress. People should have adequate coping mechanisms. The hormonal axis, which works for fertility, starts from the brain, where the hormones are produced, which drive the ovums and all of the testicles in men. So if there's anything affecting or excessive stress, that tends to affect the whole system, resulting in poor reproduction. So it's important for people to have good coping mechanisms, either by way of exercise or having other relaxing, healthy habits. So when you go to men, it's important really to emphasize awareness about male infertility, because often the male partner is not considered or is not seen during fertility evaluation. So men are called to production, and they also could be the one responsible for the infertility problem. So we do now tend to see people as couples, so that it tests both of them and know whether this is a male factor or it's a female factor, or whether it's a combined factor. So the contribution to infertility is almost half to half, and we need to know that in the peak reproductive age of almost 20 to 45 years, infertility is one of the most common conditions. So couples need to support each other and to be open about it and both go for assessment. The attitude is changing, but we still need to continue raising awareness so that men become equal partner in seeking reproductive health care, in particular in addressing the fertility problem. So just have a brief overview of how the system works in men in terms of infertility. So we can have problems here which people acquire as they grow, or some people are born with. So for conditions which people acquire, these are commonly due to infections. Infections will damage the sperm production factories of the testicles or the tubes, resulting tube ball damage. When the testicles are affected, then the sperms are not produced adequately, and then hence they won't be able to produce. Unfortunately, some people are born with problems which make it impossible for them to produce their chromosomal problems, which result in infertility. Some problems can be corrected if you picked earlier, things like undescended testicles, or sometimes the testicles can twist and then they die of what we call testicular torsion, or there can be extension injury to the testicles. Then we have problems to do with the hormones. Some of the hormonal problems, people are born with them. They can't produce the drive hormones from the brain, which drive the testicles to produce sperms. So sperms are produced within the testicles, and also within the testicle there is an essential hormone called testosterone, which is key in production of the sperms. So anything which damages the function of that hormonal system. I've already mentioned obesity, but they came by other problems which arise. Then environmental influences, excessive temperatures. Your sperm production occurs at a low temperature, so that's why the testicles are hanging low, so that they get as much cooling as possible. So excessive temperature, things like hot baths or too much underclothing, anything exposed to testicles to high temperatures will affect sperm production, resulting in low sperms. Radiation, some drugs. So some of the drugs will be actually using them to treat patients. So should you want to treat men and even women for that matter, with drugs like chemotherapy drugs or give them radiotherapy, we then need to consider harvesting the sperms or the eggs before we administer the treatment, and we freeze them. With that one, we call it fertility preservation. Alcohol, I've mentioned, use of illicit drugs and the industrial toxins, and obviously dietary factors and weight are also key. So a balanced diet is very important, because a balanced diet will introduce certain factors we should call antioxidants, which repair damage, cell damage in the testicles. So things like vitamin C and other nutritional elements will help reverse damage in the testicles. So it is important for men to stay healthy and to avoid the environmental toxins. So things like alcoholism, smoking must really be stopped. So, and also avoid illicit drugs. I know in Zimbabwe we've got an outcry currently of substance abuse amongst the youth. So we can already see this is a time bomb. We'll start now having lots of infertility amongst these youth who are abusing these substances. So we've already mentioned that we must avoid high temperatures, in particular for those men who are really struggling to conceive. We do advise them, no, please keep the temperatures low to encourage better sperm production. Of course, like both men and women must exercise regularly. So we always advise our clients to exercise. Of course, balanced diet is very important. Not too much calories, limited carbohydrate intake to avoid obesity. Our diets are so rich in carbohydrates. They assume that we are all going to be doing lots of physical work, like people in the rural areas or in the farms. Who will take lots of carbohydrates, but they offset it by working hard. But for those in urban areas, this results in obesity, because they are not doing as much activity. So it's important for them now to limit the carbohydrate intake, and also introduce other essential components in diet. So what are the key take-home messages? Firstly, infertility is not a stigma. It must be treated like any other condition, like hypertension. No one should feel bad that they have infertility or be sidelined because of infertility. So we need to fight the stigma, so that people with infertility can come forward and just be seen like another person. And we need to embrace that infertility affects men and women equally. And of course, important to get informed. So it is my hope that the media practitioners there will be informing the whole society about these issues. Men need to support their women, and never let them be labeled as the sole cause of the infertility. So infertility is a shared responsibility, and it takes a man and woman to have a child. Men are more than fathers, and women are more than mothers. So we need to break the stigma around infertility in Africa. #No to infertility. #Men too. #Men make more than than a father. So I think this is the end of this presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mugabe. Thank you. It was an insightful session. And you also reminded me a very important quote by Michelle Obama. Like she said, we must replace stigma with understanding and empathy for those facing infertility. So it was an insightful session. Thank you, Dr. Mugabe.
Thank you.
Now we move forward to our next speaker. So it is a very timely presentation and important topic that we have right now on mpox, how to stay safe, symptoms and treatment. We welcome Professor Hamisi M. Malebo. He's a chief research scientist and chairperson of the Traditional and Alternative Health Practice Council from the Ministry of Health in Tanzania. Please welcome Professor Hamisi.
Oh, thank you very much, Shama. I would
Thank you,
like
sir.
to
Pleasure.
take this opportunity. Yes, Your Excellence, First Ladies of Zambia and Zimbabwe, dignitaries, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols are observed. Next slide. In this presentation, I'll be talking about mpox, how to stay safe, symptoms, and how mpox can be treated. Next slide, please. Next slide. This is about the presentation outline. Next slide. Yeah, I would like to define what is mpox. Mpox previously was known as monkeypox. Monkeypox is a rare viral infection which is caused by the orthopox virus, or previously named as monkeypox virus. When we are talking of orthopox virus, to a scientist, this one gives a clear meaning of what the virus is. When you talk of the word ortho in Greek or Latin, whereby we derive most of the scientific words, it means raised. And the pox, it is a bumpy rash. So orthopox means a bumpy rash, a raised bumpy rash caused by a virus. So a scientist will see quickly that orthopox virus, it means this virus is causing a raised bumpy rash. So orthopox virus is also part of the same family as the viruses that cause smallpox. The name monkeypox was created before the World Health Organization published best practices for naming diseases. But scientists and experts at the moment are pushing, since the start of the recent outbreak, to change the name in order to avoid discrimination and stigma that could steer people away from testing and vaccination. And also, monkey is just a couplet, but not a true reservoir of monkeypox disease. In this disease, infected persons with mpox often get a rash along with other symptoms. The rash will go through several stages, including like scabies, before healing. I've tried to illustrate here to show that what is a monkeypox or mpox. Monkeypox, as I've said, is a rare zoonotic viral disease which belong to the orthopoxvirus genus in the family called the Poxviridae family. Pox refers to the rash. I will define in a later slide. And when we talk of zoonotic diseases, it means these are the type of diseases which spreads from animals to humans. And the genus orthopoxvirus includes the smallpox virus, which is called the variola, vaccinia virus, cowpox virus, and mpox virus. Please note the word pox on all these viruses, and I will define in the later slides. Next. Next slide, yes. Now, infection with mpox. How mpox started? The first case of monkeypox was discovered in animals in Denmark when 2 outbreaks occurred in a captive monkey colonies kept for research purposes. Hence, the name monkeypox was coined, and this was in the year 1958. In 1970, 12 years later, the first case of the viral infection in humans was recorded in the Democratic Republic of Congo, DRC, in a 9-year-old boy. Since then, the disease has become more or less endemic in Central and West Africa. Taking note that monkeys are not exactly the culprits to blame, because the virus also occurs in other animals. It is because the virus was first identified in a monkey colony used for research in 1958. That's why the name monkeypox was coined. But the word pox refers to any disease that produces a rash of pimples that become pus-filled and leave a pock marks on healing. Hence, the name monkeypox, smallpox, chickenpox, etc. So pox is a rash, a raised rash, which is a fluid filled, which later on becomes pus. And when it heals, it leaves pock marks on the skin. That is how we classify poxviruses or orthopoxviruses, which cause monkeypox, smallpox, and other pox-related infections. Next. When it comes to the source of the infection, although small wild animals in West and Central Africa, such as the rope and sun squirrels, giant poached rats, and African dormice, where mpox is endemic, the virus is found naturally in these animals. Direct or close contact with an infected animal, fluids or waste, or getting bitten or scratched by these animals is one way a person can be infected. And during activities like hunting, trapping, or processing infected wild animals in areas where mpox is endemic is also postulated to steer or initiate the infection. Next. When it comes to the signs and symptoms and mode of transmission, what we first feel as human beings when infected by the mpox virus, there is the tendency of lymph nodes to swell. So swollen lymph nodes or glands is among of the important signs of mpox disease. The second important sign is muscle pain. Muscle aches occurs in several parts of the body, as shown in the slide. Then occurrence of fever. When fever occurs, it goes hand in hand with the headache. So a person will start feeling headache while the body temperature is rising. At the following the onset of the fever, rashes will appear. And initially they will develop on the face before spreading to other parts of the body. An important incubation period with monkeypox. First symptoms appears between 5 to 21 days after infection, as opposed to chickenpox, which the first signs appears between 10 and 21 days of infection, whereas smallpox, first signs appears between 7 and 19 days of infection. As you can see, symptoms are so related. All of these diseases result into fever, rashes, and also appearance of the pox, the rash itself, which is raised, fluid-filled, and bumpy rash, appears to all this infection. But the difference is on fatality. Monkeypox is fatal. Between 1 to 10% of the cases will die, depending on the severity of the infection. Chickenpox rarely causes death, but smallpox is more fatal. The good thing is that smallpox has no any other reservoir other than human being. Hence, it was easily eradicated through the use of vaccines. Monkeypox is complicated by having various reservoirs. Different animals harbor the infection. Hence, we need to be prepared that this is a difficult disease to eradicate, not as simple as it was the case of smallpox. How does monkeypox virus spread? It can be through animal bite. It can be through eating products made of infected animals, like meat and animal products. It can be through direct contact with body fluid or rashes of an infected person. Or it can be from a human being through direct contact, rashes, body fluids, or lesions. It can be close exposure, face-to-face, or skin-to-skin contact, or droplets from nose of a person who is infected. Prolonged contact over 4 hours with an infected person also has been shown to cause the infection. And there is intimate kissing, sex, and multiple partners risk. These are the pathways which have already been elucidated to be responsible for the transmission of mpox. Next. When we are talking about risk factors and the vulnerable populations, risk factors result from direct contact with mpox rash, scabs, or body fluids from a person with mpox. Another risk factor is touching objects, fabrics or clothing, bedding or towels, and surfaces that have been used by someone with mpox. For example, door handles, touch surfaces in vehicles, in aeroplane, touch surfaces in public places, in banks, whereby an infected person with mpox have touched and lift the viruses which can be transmitted to another susceptible host. Contact with respiratory secretions or sexual contact with an infected person is among of the risk factors. Another risk factor is traveling or traveled to a country with confirmed cases of mpox or where mpox activity has been ongoing. Another risk factor is having contact with a dead or live wild animal or exotic pet that exists only in Africa or used a product derived from such animals, example meat, creams, lotion, or powders as animal products from these animals can result to infection if the animal harbors mpox virus. The vulnerable population. Actually, looking at what is happening now in Central Africa and West Africa, we are seeing a lot of young children being infected. Young children are vulnerable due to immature immunity. Malnourished children are affected by other illnesses, are the most vulnerable to catching and dying from mpox. Another group which is vulnerable to mpox are the immunocompromised people and those who are suffering from chronic illnesses. Elderly persons aged above 50 years might experience more severe mpox disease because of a higher prevalence of comorbidities. So another at-risk population all pet raisers, pet keepers are at an increased risk of mpox infection, and healthcare workers. Next. Next slide, please. When it comes, back, sorry. Back slide. Back, not forward, back. Previous slide. Previous 2 slides. No, next. No, next slide. Forward, please. Yes, this is the right slide. Now, mpox situation in Central and West Africa. Looking at this map, we are seeing quite a number of African countries whereby mpox has been occurring in the past, and these are the Democratic Republic of Congo, Gabon, Central African Republic. These are endemic with clade 1 orthopoxy virus, which is highly infectious and fatal, whereby West African countries of Cameroon, Nigeria, Ghana, Cote d'Ivoire, Liberia, and Sierra Leone, also we are seeing endemicity of clade 2 poxvirus, which is mild, not compared to clade 1, which is endemic in the Democratic Republic of Congo and Central Africa. Now, the mpox epidemic is currently sweeping through Democratic Republic of Congo, and it is spreading at an alarming rate, and it has been reported beyond the DRC's borders. DRC has reported the most people with mpox in the 13 African countries, reporting cases with a cumulative number at the moment of 19,667 of Clade 1A and the Clade 1B, which are concentrated in Central Africa, whereby 706 suspected cases have been reported. And at the moment, as we are speaking, about 575 deaths have occurred. Next. When we look at the mpox situation in Eastern and Southern Africa, in Southern and Eastern Africa, at the moment, there are about 367 confirmed mpox cases, including 3 deaths, which have occurred in 5 countries, including Burundi, which is leading in Eastern African countries with 328 cases, South Africa with 24 cases, Uganda with 7 cases, Rwanda 4 cases, and Kenya 4 cases. And this record is of September 2nd. Experts are estimating at the moment that the actual number might be higher because of the challenges of reporting, and more than 3,800 confirmed cases have been recorded across Africa since January 2024, with Burundi as the second most affected country in the continent after the Democratic Republic of Congo, as it is shown on the map. Mpox is spreading across the continent, while it is also dealing with other diseases, including cholera.
Hello.
Hello.
Yes, Professor, we can hear you.
Next slide. Next slide. Hello, Shama.
Yes, sir, please. Sir, this is the slide you want?
Yes.
Treatment and Professor, can you hear me? Professor Hamisi? Hello, Professor Hamisi, can you hear us, please? I think he just
Hello.
stopped. Yes, he's here. Yes, sir, we can hear you, sir.
Yes, the internet is back. So, monkeypox, as I have indicated previously, that the disease can resolve on its own within 2 to 4 weeks after infection. But in case of severe cases, there is no established cure or treatment regime for mpox. But several new therapies are being developed and are being researched in clinical trials. And the treatment options to manage symptoms and prevent future outbreak include the use of antivirals and also the use of vaccines. There are, at the moment, some vaccines which have been approved in the European Union and Canada and in Russia. Smallpox vaccines have been shown to be effective in the control of Mpox. When it comes to avoiding contact with objects and materials that a person with Mpox has used or touched, this remains to be an important preventive measure at the moment. So when one is infected, do not share eating utensils or cups with a person with Mpox. 2, do not handle or touch the bedding, towels, or clothing of a person with Mpox. And 3rd, if someone or yourself, you live with an Mpox disease, follow steps for cleaning and disinfecting your room or your home to prevent your beloved ones from catching the infection and also from your community not to catch the same infection. Next. Now, when it comes to infections like Mpox, we need the media. First of all, to educate individuals and the community on how this disease can be transmitted and how it can be avoided. We need the media to inform what is happening and also to inform people on where to get treatment, vaccines, and any other important information in the control of the infection. We need the media to update news on Mpox infection, features, and analysis in the place day after day so that people can be kept informed and are blessed with information about the disease. We need also the media to produce documentaries on Mpox, dramas, magazine programs, radio and television, to inform people about the infection, how to take care of themselves and how to prevent themselves and the community from catching the infection. And lastly, to facilitate behavior change and to shape public practice on disease prevention and control. Next. Thank you for listening, and this is my last slide.
Thank you, Professor Amiti Mbebulu. Thank you so much for presenting the slides. And I'm sure that Mpox is a global health issue and our collective responsibility to fight the virus. So I would request all the media representatives here just write about it and spread awareness about it so that we can save ourselves and save others and save the community. Thank you so much, Professor Hamisi, for joining us. And the session was really exciting. Okay, now we shift our focus to the societal and psychological impact of infertility stigma, gender-based violence, child marriage, and other issues. So I would like to invite Dr. Alinani Sikalwe. He's a consultant psychiatrist from Zambia. We'll also touch on the role media can play in creating community, sympathy, and writing inspiring stories. So I would like to welcome Dr. Alinani Sikalwe. Please present your presentation, please.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sharma.
Thank you.
I will ride on the protocols already observed by the speakers who have spoken before me. So this morning, I'm going to talk about the social and psychological impact of infertility. So in terms of how this discussion will proceed, I'll first define what infertility is, then look at how common it is. The causes will not go into details because Dr. Mgovi already talked about this. Then we'll look at gender-based violence, female genital mutilation, and child marriage. We'll further look at the social and psychological impacts of infertility, then the interventions and their importance. Then we'll conclude by looking at the role of the media. So what is infertility? Well, the World Health Organization defines infertility as a disease of male and female reproductive system that is defined by failure to achieve pregnancy after 12 months or more of regular and protected sexual intercourse. So from this definition, we can clearly see that infertility affects both males and females, unlike the popular belief that only females are affected. Also of note from the WHO definition here is the use of the words unprotected sexual intercourse, which must be regular. So unprotected, it means the couple or whoever is involved in that sexual intercourse should not be using barrier methods or other methods of contraception for it to amount to infertility. And the sexual intercourse must be regular in the sense that it must be performed at least 3 times in a week. Infertility is very common, not just in Africa, but worldwide. According to the WHO 2022 Global Infertility Prevalence Report, it estimated that approximately 1 in 6 people have experienced infertility at some stage in their lives. So the estimated lifetime prevalence is about 17.7% worldwide, and the estimated period prevalence is 12.6%. So these are world figures for the globe, not limited to any particular country. So
Dr. Alerani, just one request. You can move your slides.
Okay.
Do you want us to?
Please.
Bhavesh, can you please handle Dr. Yes, please. This is the slide. Dr. Alerani, please guide us which slide you are on.
Let's go. Let's move. Just before that. Okay. Yes. All right.
Thank you. Thank you, doctor. Please give us the signal next, then we'll move it accordingly. Thank you.
All right. So I was talking about the prevalence, the global prevalence of infertility. So approximately 1 in 6 people have experienced infertility at some stage in their life. And the estimated lifetime prevalence, so by lifetime prevalence, I mean the proportion of a population who have ever experienced infertility in their life. So that prevalence, people have ever experienced infertility in their lives is 17.7% globally, according to this World Health Organization report. Then the estimated period prevalence. So period prevalence is the proportion of a population with infertility at a given point or interval in time. And this time may be current or past. So this report was looking at the prevalence between 1990 and 2021. So about, I think that's about 31-year period. So the point prevalence was found to be 12.6%. Next slide. Yeah, so as we can see on this slide, there are regional differences there in terms of prevalence. And of note is the figures that we can see. Africa ranks highest when it comes to period period infertility prevalence between the 1990 and 2021, that period that was analyzed in this study. So the take-home point here is that infertility is quite highly prevalent worldwide, but more especially so a concern for Africa. I think we heard from the presentation by Dr. Mugove, who explained that infectious diseases, untreated infectious diseases could contribute to this high prevalence in Africa. Next slide. Okay. Now we look at the causes of infertility. We won't go much into the causes because my colleague, Dr. Mugove, already talked about this. But suffice here to mention that, to emphasize that infertility occurs in both males and females. So the causes are male and female factors. So infertility can be primary or secondary. Primary means that the person has never achieved, or the couple has never achieved pregnancy. So that's primary infertility. Secondary, there has been one prior pregnancy. At least one prior pregnancy has been achieved. Then after that, it becomes difficult to fall pregnant. So next. Okay, so those are some of the male factors. We won't dwell on this. We have already talked about this. Dr. Mugove Mazire talked about this. We move to the next slide. Okay, so those are some of the female factors. Again, Dr. Mazire talked about that. Next slide. Okay, yes. So yeah, so the emphasis here, as you can see from the charts there, equal prevalence in males and females. Then other factors are mixed. It could be both male and females. Then the rest are unknown. But the point here is that it's not just a female problem. It's a problem that affects both sexes. Next slide, please. Okay, now we look at some problems, social problems that are associated with infertility. And one of these is gender-based violence. I will borrow a definition from the Anti-Gender-Based Violence Act of Zambia. This is a law that was enacted in 2011. There is a similar law in Zimbabwe, and it's called the Domestic Violence Act number 14 of 2006. It's found in chapter 516 of the laws of Zimbabwe. These two statutes have similar provisions. So what I will be talking about from the Anti-GBV Act of Zambia is also found in the Domestic Violence Act of Zimbabwe. So these two acts have defined gender-based violence as any physical, mental, social, economic abuse against a person because of the person's gender. So by gender, we mean being male or female, or the role that individuals play in society as a result of their sex or status. So this includes violence that results in or is likely to result in physical, sexual, or psychological harm, emotional and verbal abuse, threats such as coercion or arbitrary deprivation of liberty, stalking, and many, many others. So these acts can occur in public or in private. So some of the examples of verbal or emotional abuse as a form of gender-based violence include insults, ridicule, name calling, and this can be very common when it comes to people who are infertile. So they might be receiving ridicule from other members of society. It also includes serious invasions of a person's privacy and liberty. Physical abuse, common examples include hitting, beating, punching, slapping, kicking, malicious damage to property, and many other acts. Sexual violence would include such things as sexual contact without consent of the person with whom the contact is made, making unwanted sexual advances. It also includes cultural or customary practices such as female genital mutilation, forced marriage, sexual cleansing, child marriage, forced spouse inheritance, and many other examples. The sexual abuse act of the Domestic Abuse Act of Zimbabwe actually defines sexual abuse as including any conduct that humiliates, degrades, or otherwise violates the sexual integrity of the complainant. Yeah, so these are some of the ways in which gender-based violence may present itself. We go to the next slide and look at some of the figures, what we has been observed so far, not only in Zambia, but also in Zimbabwe. So according to the Zambia Demographic and Health Survey, which was published, I think, since 2018. So it showed that about of women who are aged between 15 and 49 who experienced and reported or sought help for physical or sexual violence. About 33% said they were physically associated only. Then 20% sexual assault, and 46% said they were both physically and sexually assaulted. So we can see that this is a very big problem in Zambia. But Zimbabwe also has similar figures, which shows that the problem is equally important in Zimbabwe. So a report in 2019 was published by the Zimbabwe Multi-Indicator Cluster Survey. So that was the 2019 survey. It indicated that 40% of women and girls in Zimbabwe experience physical violence in their lifetime, and 20% experience sexual violence. So we can see that this is quite a common problem. We move to the next slide and look at some of the forms of spousal or gender-based violence that these surveys have reported. Next slide, please. No, before that. Before that. Yes, there. Yeah, so some of the forms of gender-based violence that those women who are surveyed, the previous slide we talked about, include being pushed, shaken, or even something being thrown at her, slapping her, and as you can see, the prevalence for these were quite high. Those who experience such kind of violence, and twisting her arm or pulling her hair, punching her with his fist. So this is the male partner inflicting violence on the female partner. So punching her with a fist or with something that could hurt her, kicking her, dragging her, or beating her up, trying to choke her or burn her on purpose, threatening her or attacking her with a knife, gun, or other weapon, and physically forcing her to have sexual intercourse with him when she did not want to, physically forcing her to perform any other sexual acts she did not want to, and forcing her with threats or in any other way to perform sexual acts she did not want. So all these are forms of gender-based violence. And if you look at the prevalence, the figures are quite concerning. So this can be associated with the issue of infertility. Because there is infertility being experienced by the couple, then these things start coming in. Next slide. We now talk about female genital mutilation, also associated with infertility and also a form of gender-based violence. So female genital mutilation has been defined as the practice that involves partial or total removal of external female genitalia or other injury to female genital organs for non-medical purposes. So usually this is carried out by traditional practitioners on young girls, minors. It has no health benefits at all for these girls and any other female. And as such, it is recognized as a violation of human rights of girls and women. So in terms of female genital mutilation, the rights that are abused or infringed on include the right to health, the right to security, the right to physical integrity, because there is mutilation of the genitalia there. Right to freedom from torture, right to inhumane and degrading treatment being infringed, and right to life, as we are going to see in the next slide, some of the complications that can arise from female genital mutilation. Next slide, please. Yeah, so these are some of the complications that can arise from female genital mutilation. They include severe pain, because most of these procedures are done in a traditional setup. They don't use any form of painkillers. So the victim usually experiences severe pain. Severe bleeding also occurs, and this can lead to death, infringing on the right to life. Problems with urinating, cysts, infections, which can lead to infertility, as we heard in Dr. Mugove's presentation. There could also be complications in childbirth and indeed mental health problems, which we are going to look at later. Other long-term complications include vaginal problems such as vaginal discharge, itching, and infections. Menstrual problems such as painful menstruation, difficulties passing menstrual blood, scar tissue, and keloids. So scars may form on that mutilated part. Then sexual problems as well. So there could be pain during sexual intercourse, or even a decreased satisfaction from sexual intercourse. There's also an increased risk of childbirth complications, as we said earlier, but this can also continue in the long term and can include things such as difficult delivery, excessive bleeding during around that time of childbirth, increased risk of cesarean section, and newborn death. So these are some of the complications of female genital mutilation, and indeed, as we can see, it's obvious that these are an infringement on the rights of girls and women. In the next slide, we will talk about another issue that is associated with infertility, and this is child marriage. So child marriage refers to any formal or informal union between a child under the age of 18 years and an adult or another child. So many jurisdictions define a child as a person who's under 18 years of age. So if you have a marriage, a union which is formal or informal between that person who's 18 years old with an adult, or that person who is less than 18 with another person who is less than 18 years old, then that amounts to child marriage. And Sustainable Development Goal number 3 and 5 call for global action to end child marriage by 2030. Yeah, so there has been some effort that has been put in, and it's important to acknowledge that there's been some decline that has been seen over the years in terms of child marriages. However, the practice still remains widespread. According to to UNICEF, a 2023 report revealed that approximately 1 in 5 girls are married in childhood globally. And in Zambia, this is a big problem because child marriage is still among the highest in the world in Zambia. Equally in Zimbabwe, child marriage is quite high there as well, just similar with Zambia. We'll see some statistics on the next slide with regard to. So as you can see on this slide, according to the Zambia Demographic and Health Survey, women who were surveyed, those who were in the age of 20 to 24 years old, 42% revealed, that was in 2002, revealed that they were married before the age of 18. And this trend continued, the figure continued being high. Another survey in 2007 showed that it remained high, 42%. But some improvement there in 2014, we see that only about 31.4% reported that they were married before the age of 18. Still, 31.4 still high, but some improvement there. We have similar report from Zimbabwe, according to the 2019 multi-indicator cluster survey that I referred to earlier. It also indicates that child marriage is also highly prevalent in Zimbabwe. According to that report, 33% of women who are aged between 20 to 24 years old were married before age 18. And 5.4% were married before age 15. Of course, the 2022 National Population Census of Zimbabwe showed some improvement, but still those figures show that the situation is also quite concerning. In the next slide, we'll look at some of the effects of child marriage, and this include perpetuation of poverty. So these are people who have not yet realized their full potential, they are still young, and they are likely to continue. Usually the people will be affected with child marriage, they will be from marginalized part of society. So these will be people who are living in poverty, uneducated, and fewer resources. So when they get married young, you find that there's perpetuation of poverty. They will continue living in poverty. Then the other effect is that it deprives girls of education, because instead of being in school, she's in marriage. So 15-year-old, those are supposed to be in school, but they're already in marriages. It also creates health risks. For example, as we said earlier, there is a higher maternal and infant mortality. Then it also increases the vulnerability of girls. So the younger the person is at the time of marriage, the higher the chances of having the STIs we talked about, that Dr. Mugove talked about, including HIV and those predisposed to infertility. There's also an increased risk of gender-based violence, especially where you have a child getting married to an adult, but equally where there is a child getting married to another child, the risk of gender-based violence increases. Now we'll move to the next slide and look at what some of the social and psychological impacts of infertility and related matters that we've talked about. What are some of the social and psychological impacts of those problems that we have just talked about? So the impact is not just psychological, but also social. So by psychological, we mean that which affects or arises from the mind or emotions. And social, it involves the interaction of an individual with others or society. So there's a spectrum of emotions and reactions when facing infertility and related problems. And in the next slide, we'll look at some of these problems that arise from infertility. So infertility related distress can be grouped in various themes, and these include anxiety, mood disturbance, threat to self, threat to the couple, and weakened social support. So in terms of anxiety, we find that people with infertility might be anxiously ruminating on their problems because everybody is talking about it, telling them when they are going to, in our society, telling them when they are going to have a child because maybe they're in a marriage, they have been married for so long, for a few years, and they are not having a child. There's a lot of pressure from the community. So the couple or the individual is also pushed into this anxious state where they are constantly ruminating on this problem. So that will bring about anxiety. And the person might even start avoiding others, avoiding situations where they know that they are likely to be asked about when they are going to have a child. Then the other problem is they might have a narrowed focus. So life now will be revolving around fertility issues. So they have a narrowed focus and they become less productive. And this builds up anxiety. Then excessive information also brings about anxiety. So because they may be trying to conceive, but it's not happening. They are not falling pregnant. So they'll be looking for information everywhere, even from unreliable sources, and this can contribute to anxiety. Their mood and their emotions can also be disturbed. So you find that their mood will be laborious. Sometimes they are happy, but most of the times they look low, and this may lead to depression. Then they may also be a threat to themselves. They may start having suicidal thoughts, and they may even have suicidal attempts because of unmet expectations, self-blame, and self-shame. Infertility may also be a threat to the couple. So the couple may have differences in coping. So male and female might be coping differently to this problem. And this might also lead to sexual dysfunction because after all the effort, the people with this infertility problems might think that nothing is happening. So they might have issues with sexual dysfunction. It may also lead to financial distress. This can be because they have been putting in much effort trying to look for solutions everywhere, but the solutions are not coming forth. There may also be disagreements on the next steps. And eventually, you may find that a couple that started off well may end up getting divorced. It may lead to violence, gender-based violence. We looked at some of the ways in which gender-based violence is propagated. It may result from this. Then the other distress is weakened social support. So because of the problem that is already there, the relationship might be strained, social stigma, because people have been expecting that the couple will become pregnant, but no pregnancy, and because of the culture the couple lives in, there could be that social stigma, especially on the female. And indeed, related to what we have talked about, where the victim is avoiding others, or other people are avoiding the person who is infertile, the person there might be social isolation. Sometimes the person will try by all means to seek help from healthcare providers, but they are dismissed. The healthcare providers don't see the seriousness of the problem. So the person might go to the healthcare facility with any of the problems that we have listed here, which are related to infertility, but that is dismissed by the healthcare provider. Okay, now let's look at some of the interventions for the problems that we've just looked at. So to holistically treat people with infertility, we need to take what we call a biopsychosocial approach. By biopsychosocial, we mean the interventions must be all-encompassing, including the biological or medical approaches, psychological, and social approaches. So Dr. Mugove dwelt much on the medical approaches of managing infertility, and these include medication, surgical approaches, and assisted conception. I will not go into detail explaining this. I think Dr. Mugove did a very good job here. Psychological approaches include therapy. So psychotherapy such as infertility counseling, relaxation techniques for anxiety, and the other problems we talked about, anxiety and depression, self-help, interpersonal therapy, and cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT, is very effective for depression, anxiety, and other problems that we talked about. Social interventions include couple counseling, as well as supportive social interactions. Additional social interventions include the filing of complaints to relevant authorities, such as the police. Remember, we talked about how infertility is associated with things such as gender-based violence, female genital mutilation, and child marriage. So according to the many national laws, but especially the laws in Zambia and Zimbabwe, the ones we looked, I referred to earlier, the Anti-GBV Act of Zambia and the Domestic Violence Act of Zimbabwe, both laws encourage victims of gender-based violence or domestic violence to launch a complaint to relevant authorities such as the police. So these are some of the social interventions that can be taken. The victims can also obtain a protection order from the courts of law. So a protection order will work to the effect that it will give protection to the victim so that the perpetrator of the violence does not have access to this victim. So the perpetrator of the violence, for example, might be told not to come anywhere near the victim. It could be the victim's home, the victim's workplace, so the order might give such stipulations. So who can file this complaint or protection order? So anyone. It could be the victim herself, or it could be a healthcare practitioner who comes to know of the situation that the victim is in. Or indeed, it could be a next friend. So next friends include neighbors, relatives, friends, or any person, any concerned person. The media also has a big role to play when it comes to treatment or management of this issue of infertility and related problems. Next slide, please. Yeah, so there are so many ways in which the media can help or intervene. And one of the ways is to demystify infertility. As we know in our culture, African culture especially, and more especially the countries of concern here, Zambia, Zimbabwe, we know that most people, a lot of people believe that wherever there is infertility, the woman is to blame. So the media can help to reduce or even remove that myth by educating the public. Because as we have learned, infertility in terms of prevalence is equally prevalent in males and females. So it's not just a problem that affects females, but also there are male factors. So the media can do this by creating community sympathy. For example, writing inspiring stories. I was very happy to see the video from the lady in Kenya. I think that's Jacqueline Mwende. Yeah, so such stories will inspire and educate the public. So the media can use such initiatives to inform and educate. The media can also provide a forum on infertility for the public and also refer to facilities offering fertility services. In the next slide, we'll look at the importance of addressing infertility and related matters. So addressing infertility and related matters is a key component of promoting sexual health and reproductive rights. So this is according to the World Health Organization. So all of us, including people with infertility, have the right to the highest standard of physical and mental health. And one of the sustainable development goals I referred to earlier, sustainable development goal number 3 and 5, state that number 3 says that we need to ensure that people have healthy lives and promote a well-being for all at all ages. And number 5, the goal is to achieve gender equality and empower women and girls. So both the healthcare system and the media have a big role to play in this, the issue of infertility and the related matters that we've talked about today. In conclusion, infertility and related matters are a common problem worldwide, and failure to address them can result in psychosocial distress. So interventions to manage problems should be holistic, based on the biopsychosocial approach, and both the healthcare system and the media have a big role to play in managing these problems. And addressing infertility and related problems is key in promoting human rights and sustainable development. So I end here. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Aliana. Thank you so much. And as we learned from this presentation, is just that we'll have to prioritize self-care, stay connected with loved ones, and seek professional support when needed to maintain our mental well-being. Am I right?
Yes, that's true. That's true. Well
Yeah.
summarized.
Yes. Thank you, Dr. Alanani. Thank you so much for the insightful presentation. So now moving on, we'll take a quick break and enjoy the sugar-free jute animation film. It's an engaging story promoting healthy lifestyle. Can we have the sugar-free jute animation film on the screen, please?
Merck Foundation.
Can we have the film, please?
Yes, sir.
Bhavesh?
Yes, Harsh. Actually, the screen is not.
Yeah, we can see it. You can just play it, please.
Yeah. Sorry.
Merck Foundation. No more diabetes. Reverse diabetes. Goodbye diabetes.
It's morning rush time to school, and Jude is about to take a big bite into his breakfast on the go. Jude loves donuts, especially sugar-coated ones.
I love the taste of sugar on my donuts. It makes my morning sweet with this juice combination.
Jude, don't you think your eating habits are too unhealthy? I am worried about the rate at which you consume sugar products.
James, relax. I can't wait to eat my lunch. More donuts? There's nothing to worry about.
Jude was not bothered about James' concern. He went on eating more sweet foods day after day. As the days passed by, Jude started noticing something quite unusual.
My goodness, not again.
Jude would wake up several times at night to wheelie. It was so uncomfortable. Not only that, but he also noticed that he would wake up very thirsty. Jude would need to drink water multiple times during the day as well as night, and this also meant using the washroom several times.
Oh my god, this is so destructive and shameful.
What is it? This appears to be the third time you woke up to use the bathroom. You even look a bit fat. Very unusual.
I have no idea, Mom. And I've been feeling very thirsty lately as well. And sometimes tired.
We need to see the doctor to make sure all is well with you.
I agree, Mom. It distracts my day at school too much.
At the clinic, Dr. Yobu decides to conduct a few tests to confirm his diagnosis about Jude.
Bhavesh?
Yes.
It didn't play the full video, please.
Actually, it play. The full video was played in my laptop. Should I share
Yes,
it again?
please. Yes,
Yeah.
please.
Okay.
I'm so sorry for this technical glitch.
No more diabetes. Reverse diabetes. Goodbye diabetes.
It's morning rush time to school, and Jude is about to take a big bite into his breakfast on the go. Jude loves donuts, especially sugar-coated ones.
I love the taste of sugar on my donuts. It makes my morning sweet with this juice combination.
Jude, don't you think your eating habits are too unhealthy? I am worried about the rate at which you consume sugar products.
James, relax. I can't wait to eat my lunch. More donuts? There's nothing to worry about.
Jude was not bothered about James' concern. He went on eating more sweet foods
day after day. As the days passed by, Jude started noticing something quite unusual.
My goodness, not again.
Jude would wake up several times at night to really. It was so uncomfortable. Not only that, but he also noticed that he would wake up very thirsty. Jude would need to drink water multiple times during the day as well as night, and this also meant using the washroom several times.
Oh my god, this is so destructive and shameful.
What is it? This appears to be the third time you woke up to use the bathroom. You even look a bit fat. Very unusual.
I have no idea, ma'am. And I've been feeling very thirsty lately as well. And sometimes tired.
We need to see the doctor to make sure all is well with you.
I agree, ma'am. It disrupts my day at school too much.
At the clinic, Dr. Yobu decides to conduct a few tests to confirm his diagnosis about Jude.
I'm so sorry for this technical glitch. I guess this video is not supporting the system right now. It didn't play full. So Bhavesh, can I request you to share the video link here and the form?
Yeah, sure.
Feedback form, please, along with the video link, YouTube.
Yes.
So that our attendees can see that video and
I've shared in the chat.
did you share the link, Bhavesh? Just share the video link, YouTube link that I've shared it with you in the chat. Dear attendees, I would request you to fill out this feedback form on the animation film, which will be shared by my colleague Bhavesh with you in the chat box. So let's take a few minutes, and meanwhile, you can just lock your answers in the feedback form. We'll wait, then we'll move to our next speaker, please. I would request every attendees to please fill this feedback form for us. It will be really helpful. Thank you so much, everyone, for watching it. I'm really sorry for the technical glitch. However, I have shared the YouTube link in the chat box. Please, after this health media training, you can watch it online and you can share feedback with us if you didn't fill it right now. Thank you so much. Moving on to our next speaker, we will hear from Dr. Kastamba Gerard from Morgenso Hospital in Zimbabwe, who'll speak on the importance of promoting healthy lifestyle and raising awareness about diabetes and hypertension, as well as how the media can help report on such topics to the community. May I invite Dr. Kastamba Gerard, please?
Good day, everyone. Just to acknowledge the CEO of Merck Foundation, Dr. Rasha, and also Her Excellencies from Zambia and Zimbabwe, and also the participants for this presentation. I will take you through this presentation, looking at promoting health lifestyle and raising awareness about prevention and early detection of diabetes and hypertension, and also as the media fraternity how to report about these conditions in the community. Okay, so we'll focus on these conditions which are part of the non-communicable diseases. Examples that we have are cardiovascular diseases like hypertension, heart failure. We also have diabetes, cancer, chronic respiratory diseases. And if you look at what is happening in our communities, which you are part of, you will see that there has been an increase of reported cases of these conditions. And these result from a combination of genetic, physiological, environmental, and behavioral factors. And they have now become the leading cause of death worldwide and represent an emerging global health threat. In as much as in Southern Africa, we have had challenges with mostly infectious diseases, looking at HIV and TB. We are also now having a huge component of the deaths that are reported coming from these non-communicable diseases. So this is just an illustration to just show you the conditions which we are classifying as non-communicable disease. We have your hypertension there is high blood pressure. You have your diabetes, you have your heart disease, heart attack or a stroke. You also have chronic respiratory diseases like asthma, and you also have cancers which range from the different organs that are affected. So focusing on diabetes, so diabetes is defined as a chronic metabolic disease, which is characterized by elevated levels of blood sugar, which leads over time to serious damage to the heart, blood vessels, eyes, kidneys, and nerves. So I'm sure as you look at the video that was shared, you will see that this is what is being illustrated. And then in terms of the symptoms, you have a complement of excessive thirst, which is otherwise called polydipsia. You also have an increased appetite, which is polyphagia. You also have excessive urination, which is polyuria. You also have weight loss. There will be vision changes and fatigue. This is also another illustration just showing you a pictorial representation of the symptoms. So this is what mostly clients or people will report when they come to the clinic. But what is very important for us as the media fraternity is for us to share these things so that people are aware. Because in our experience, rarely do we see people presenting early. Most of the people who have had these symptoms maybe for more than 3 to 6 months or some even a year, but they would not be sure what is really affecting them, so that when they come, some actually present with their first complication, which means that there is need for more awareness about some of these signs and symptoms of diabetes so that our people continue to seek health services early. So as I highlighted, you have your excessive thirst, you also have a slow wound healing there, you have constant hunger, then there's also sudden weight loss, blurring of vision, you also have tingling feet and excessive tiredness and drowsiness there. And then that component of excessive urination is something that usually then brings most of our clients to the clinics. Why? Because they wake up more times, and even the amount of urine that they will be passing will be more than usual. So that usually drives them to come to the health facility. But with more health education, with more visibility in terms of talking about these conditions, I'm sure there's a lot of more people that can then present early to seek services. In terms of the type of diabetes, we have 3 broad types. We have the type 1, otherwise called early onset, type 2, late onset, then we have gestational, and this one is usually pregnancy related. So we'll look at this type of diabetes. Then in terms of risk factors, in terms of risk factors, for type 2 diabetes, usually when there is a family history of diabetes, we usually encourage those people to start to be screened early for diabetes. And those that are 45 years and above, they will also be at risk of developing diabetes, and also it has some ethnicity predisposition. And those who are physically inactive or who are in sedentary settings, I will talk about this to say, if you look at generally our lifestyle, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, used to walk long distances either to go to school or even to visit one another. But if you look at what is happening now with the increase in modern means of transportation, most people are no longer as active as they should. But this is actually putting us at risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And then being overweight or obese is also another risk factor. Then high blood pressure is actually a risk of developing type 2 diabetes. And you have high cholesterol now, this is diet linked. And also some lifestyle habits like smoking also put people to be at risk of type 2 diabetes. Then in terms of complications, it's also very key for us to then remember, because as I said, that in terms of the signs and symptoms, some actually just present with the metabolic disturbances which come because of diabetes, but there are some that will then present with the complications. And examples of complications that we have because of diabetes is you can develop a stroke, you can also develop blindness, some present with heart disease, and some can also present with kidney failure, and some present with sexual dysfunction, and some can end up being amputated because of diabetes. Then nutrition is actually a very important component of diabetes, especially in terms of management. We have what we call medical nutrition therapy. So this is also a critical area where the media can actually be of good service to our communities, because when we then advocate for healthy eating, it actually then reduces the risks that come because of diabetes. Then in terms of prevention, it's critical for us to focus on prevention. So health information, giving accurate information to our society is actually a form of prevention. But other things that people need to be educated on is health body weight. And then this is defined by having a body mass index which is within the range of 18 to 24.9, and also being physically active. And WHO recommends that physical activity is defined as 30 minutes of continuous activity for at least, which is associated with an increase in the respiratory rate and the heart rate, and which is done for at least 5 days a week. And then we also look at health diet, which is something that is also part of the prevention package, and also the issue of avoiding tobacco use. Then moving on to hypertension. Hypertension is sometimes called the silent killer, simply because at times most of the clients, they do not present with any symptoms, but they would be having high elevated blood pressure levels. So it is diagnosed as, when measured on 2 different levels, as a systolic blood pressure of 100 greater than of 140 or above, or a diastolic blood pressure of at least 90. And then it's a condition which affects blood vessels because of the persistent rate pressure, and it's also a leading risk factor for cardiovascular disease. Then in terms of the risk factors for developing hypertension, we have unhealthy diets, we have also physical inactivity, and you have consumption of tobacco and alcohol, and also being overweight. Then these are the modifiable, these are things that we can change, because if we change our diet, we can actually then reduce the risk. If we exercise, if we reduce the consumption of alcohol and tobacco, we can actually reduce the risk of hypertension. But there are other non-modifiable risk factors like family history of hypertension, or those that are above 65 years. And for those that also have other comorbid conditions like diabetes or kidney disease. Then in terms of the symptoms, we should then remember that high blood pressure is usually asymptomatic, to say that most of the clients that then develop hypertension, they do not present with any complaint. But what we then note on measuring their blood pressure is that they will have elevated blood pressures. So at times for those that then develop symptoms, they can develop early morning headaches, they can develop nosebleeds, irregular heart rhythms, vision changes also, and some ringing sensation in the ears. They can also, and for those that develop severe hypertension, they can also then present with symptoms like fatigue, nausea, vomiting, confusion, anxiety, chest pain, and some also present with muscle tremors. Then in terms of complications, I think one thing that we also then need to remember is to look at those areas that are affected by hypertension. You can develop a stroke as a complication of hypertension. You can develop heart attack, and you can also develop kidney damage. So that's why non-communicable diseases are very important for us, for our people to know, is because look at those areas which are affected by the complications. They are the same areas that diabetes also affects, which means that if someone then develops diabetes and hypertension, they have an increased risk of then developing these complications or these end organ damages. Then in terms of preventing hypertension, you can then work on reducing salt to less than 5 grams daily, eating fruits and vegetables, also avoiding saturated fats and trans fats, avoiding tobacco, reducing the amount of alcohol, and being physically active every day. Then in terms of controlling blood pressure, there is need to follow medical advice and adhere to lifestyle changes. I'm sure these days in our communities, there is a bit of more practitioners that are claiming to treat different conditions. So there is need for us to be sending out the correct information in our society so that our people can continue to follow medical advice. And then the taking of medicines as they are prescribed is also very important. Then to regularly check blood pressure, this also then speaks into the improvement of our health-seeking behavior or the health-seeking behavior in our populations. And then the reduction, the management of stress is also very critical to control blood pressure. Then what is the role of media? The media, mass media, it provides an important link between the rural residents and health information. Remember, there are some people that, because of various factors, they might be far away from health facilities, or they usually visit health facilities when they feel they have a problem, but they might actually be having some of these non-communicable diseases. So the mass media, as we spread the messages through different audiences, we then are able to spread the information that will also ensure that there is a early screening, and also treatment reaching our people early. Then media also plays a role in educating the public about health concerns, and also has a responsibility to report accurate health and science information to the public. I'm sure moving from what was happening during COVID-19 times, you see that there was a lot of misinformation that was happening, and it is the role of the media to then ensure that there is accurate information being spread. Then media can also play a supplementary role by being integrated into a program that includes face-to-face or other forms of interventions. So I'm sure different programs can actually offer screening initiatives or just information giving initiatives that can be done at community level, and the media then becomes very critical to ensure that the information that is being spread is actually reliable information, which then helps our people to seek services early. The media can also be used at many levels of audience, organizations such as individual, network, organizational, and societal level. So the reach of the media is also very then critical to say a clinic can only reach maybe their local context, but the media, it has that far reach into different levels of society. So if we have correct and accurate information being spread at that level, then it means that we are then going to do much service in the prevention and also the support and treatment of people that then develop non-communicable diseases. Then there's also health promotion, disease prevention, and the goal is to enhance a state of well-being, to guard health and population at risk. So this is some of the things that the media can then do in this context. Having said that, I think I've come to the end of my slides, and thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Dr. Katsamma. It was great and it was very quick. Thank you so much for the presentation, and I would request you to please request all the attendees to fill up the feedback form for us and watch the animation film if they haven't watched. Hello?
Okay. Okay, so I think as attendees, I'm sure you, as you go, as you follow that link to see the video, that video is another way. Remember, these days we have many ways to spread information, and social media, small videos are also have now become very critical, and these animations are very critical because they carry the important message. Because some people actually do not want to read things; they just want to watch a short video and still get the same quality of information. So I actually then encourage us to then follow the link. Let's comment on the video so that when other videos are being prepared, they also then cover issues that we think are very critical. And also let's then share the videos so that we, within our networks, that information is being spread into the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Gerard. Thank you so much. And now it's time for our video speaker who can shed some light on the role of the media in reaching communities at the grassroots level and raising awareness on health and social issues like infertility stigma, girls' education, child marriage, gender-based violence, and FGM. So now I would like to invite Mr. Najubolo Nakube. He is the National Director at Zimbabwe National Editors Forum. Please welcome Dr. Najubolo Nakube.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, very well. Yes, very well, sir. Can you please switch on your video?
Thank you very much for affording me this opportunity to share my views on the subject at hand. Firstly, I want to write on the protocol that has been observed. Maybe firstly, just to recognize the excellencies from Zambia and Zimbabwe, respectively, for this partnership. As well, I want to recognize the experts that have come before me to make these incisive and informative presentations. Firstly, Dr. Madzinyire, Professor Malebo, Dr. Sichalwe, I hope I pronounced it okay, Dr. Kasamba, who just presented now on this very, very important media training. My brief is a very simple one in that all the experts that we have had since 9 a.m. today in Central Africa time, they have actually given insights on the expected roles of the media in Africa in addressing health and social issues. I will add on what they've said to give a helicopter view of what I think is the role of the media in reaching out to communities at grassroots levels and raising awareness on health and social issues, on issues concerning infertility stigma, girls' education, girl-child marriage, gender-based violence, female genital mutilation. I'll start by saying that the media landscape in Africa is largely consists of newspapers, radio, TV, and social media, with community media being critical for grassroots outreach, particularly in regard to these health and social issues like infertility, stigma, GVP, FGM, child marriages, girls' education. I would just want to make reference to Zimbabwe in regard of its media landscape, in that I want to emphasize that the Zimbabwe government has recently licensed 14 community radio stations, including campus and tertiary institutions community radio stations, such as the University of Zimbabwe, the Harare Polytechnic, the National Institute of Science and Technology, and Great Zimbabwe University, among others. More are going to be licensed. I'm mentioning the community radios, in that community radios all over Africa have been found to be powerful in the dissemination of information on this particular subject that we are discussing today. As such, we need to appreciate the role of community radio stations in promoting active participation of marginalized groups in democracy governance. There is also need to exploit innovative strategies for amplifying the voices of the marginalized communities through community radio stations. Community radio stations are a tool for development, as are other genres of media. All media in all its forms play a crucial role in driving development and ensuring and enabling the effective and impactful coverage of health and social issues like infertility, stigma, girls' education, girl-child marriage, GBV, and FGM. Mr. Moderator, let's go to the first slide.
Sure. Sure.
Right. On that slide, I'm giving a summary of the role of the media in Zimbabwe and Africa in addressing health and social issues. I've mentioned point number 1. I'll go to point number 2, addressing issues. Infertility stigma. The media can reduce stigma through sensitization campaigns, personal stories, and expert opinion. The experts have mentioned that, especially the first speaker, Dr. Madzinyire, that there are perceptions around the stigma. And then as I was going through questions that were being raised as the discussion was going on, some of the attendees posed questions like, for instance, are males in Africa getting the message about male infertility? What role can the media play to ensure the message is loud and clear? My answer to that will be that media can reduce stigma through sensitization campaigns, personal stories, and expert opinions. We are lucky in that the Merck Foundation has enabled us to gather a pool of experts, like the 4 experts that have made presentations today. So my appeal to my colleagues in the media is that let's utilize this engagement and the experts that have been made available to us to have stories around reducing stigma. Then the second point around the issues that are being addressed, which is girls' education. As the media, we should highlight success, raising awareness, and advocating for supportive policies. I'm happy that in Zimbabwe, the government is pushing for the implementation of such policies in the education sector, so that no one is left behind in terms of giving access to girls. And then there's the aspect of girl-child marriages. This has been a huge story in some of our communities, not only in Zimbabwe, but in Africa. As the media, we can again raise awareness by having awareness campaigns. We can also do legal advocacy and community engagement to change cultural norms. In regard to gender-based violence, the media is urged to report incidents, supporting survivors, and advocating for stronger laws. I want to mention that the media, including social media, in Zimbabwe in particular, they've been very aggressive in exposing gender-based violence. We've had incidents of videos that have gone viral on X, for instance, and Facebook, that have been publicized and leading to the police and other authorities taking action against perpetrators of gender-based violence. And then the last point around female genital mutilation, the media can also run educational campaigns, as well as community engagements to our community halls, and then also to encourage legal advocacy through legal experts. We can give them prime time on our television stations, on our radio stations, and columns in our newspapers, so that the issue, as articulated by the four experts that have gone before us, gets publicity in the media, including the internet. I'm happy that our expert from Tanzania, Professor Malebo, timelessly brought the issue of mpox, which is currently gaining currency in all kinds of media and other social media platforms. We need the media to inform the publics, various publics, on mpox through dramas. I'm quoting him verbatim, through documentaries about this phenomenon, in order to help our publics to know how to prevent mpox, as well as facilitate behavioral changes in our communities. So the media has a major role, a critical role to play in addressing all these issues that are besetting us as Zimbabwe, as Zambia, and Africa at large. But then again, on point number 3 there, challenges and opportunities. Yes, we have challenges and at the same time opportunities as the media, as we try to zero in on how to as the media, we should reach out to the communities at grassroots level in order to raise awareness on healthy and social issues that we're addressing today. The first one is limited access. Rural areas lack media access. Hence my emphasis in my opening remarks that we should pay tribute to community radio stations and to a larger extent to the government of Zimbabwe for seeing the wisdom in licensing 14 community radio stations, and there are indications that more such community radio stations should be licensed in order to increase rural access to media. And then the other challenge has been the challenge of censorship, and to a certain extent, repression in the entire African continent. Journalists and media owners are censoring themselves in order to remain sustainable. So, which I feel that is not good if we are to play a major and critical role in reaching our communities. There's also the issue of the digital divide. There's limited international access in rural areas, but it is my hope that with the developments in ICT, this will improve. We are elated in Zimbabwe that we now have authorized Starlink to be available in our rural areas, and hope this intervention will help us as the media, as the community, as a country, to further reach out to the communities at grassroots levels in raising awareness around fertility, stigma, girls' education, child marriages, gender-based violence, and FGM, as well as Mpox. Then there's a challenge around collaboration in the media, not only in Zimbabwe, Zambia, but in the African continent. The media can collaborate with civic society and policymakers to amplify impact. Collaboration is very, very important if we are to achieve the goals that we have set out to do in addressing these issues that have brought us here today. There is the issue, the last issue I want to mention is the issue of innovative use of technology. This is a huge opportunity where we need to leverage social media for grassroots activism in collaboration with legacy or traditional media. And then lastly, mindful that it is me that is holding you between now and your lunch. If you are at this side of Equator, I will proffer my recommendations. As a media, we need to strengthen community media. I've mentioned my excitement around the licensing of community radio stations in Zimbabwe. We need to strengthen community media. We need to support community newspapers. I'm glad that the Zimbabwe Media Commission is a component of assisting community news, community media, particularly vernacular media. And also supporting community television, although we have not gotten there, but I'm sure we are going to get there. And this is a very important aspect of the media. We need to strengthen community and radio and television. Another recommendation that I'm putting forward regards enhancing digital literacy. We need to promote digital literacy programs as the media, because the media that is not or does not embrace developments in the digital world is not useful and helpful. Then there is issue around collaborative efforts. We should encourage collaboration between the media, civic society, and policymakers, and experts in the fields that have been covered today. I'm happy that with the
Hello, can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, Harsh, you are audible.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Najwa Bule. It was an insightful session, and thank you for the in-depth details of the media, how media can play a important role in spreading the news around such sensitive topics in the respective countries. Thank you so much for having you here. And now I would like to open the floor for Q&A with all our esteemed experts. Please feel free ask your questions if there are any questions.
Sorry, madam, I was cut off when I was about to conclude.
Okay, hello, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes. So I was just thanking you,
I was
sir.
saying,
Yes, sir, please carry on.
yes, no, I was about to conclude just to say that in conclusion, indeed the media is a significant role in raising awareness and addressing healthy and social issues. By leveraging various media platforms and collaborating with other stakeholders, the media can contribute to positive social change despite the challenges faced. I thank you.
Okay, sir. Thank you so much. Is there any questions for our experts? I would like to invite media representatives to ask any question from our experts, medical experts and media experts. Okay, so I think there are no questions, and thank you so much, dear eminent speakers from medical sector and from media, and thank you for answering the questions from the attendees in the Q&A chat box. Now, I would like to thank you for all the participants for participating in today's program, and we hope you to leave with valuable insights that will help in our work, and together we can raise awareness and make a positive difference in our communities. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and have a nice day. And please stay safe. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Bye-bye now.
Thank you.